It's not often that we get over 20 watches in a few days, and this time I'm going to concentrate my whole video about talking about those watches. Those watches are really interesting because I try to buy a bit of everything, and you'll see some stuff has been very hyped up in the past, a bit less today. Maybe there's some stuff to learn about this, even for you guys buying hyped up pieces today. And there's some really big classics in here and some really nice go-getters which are good for any starting collection. As always, my name is Chris. I created this channel to share my love for vintage watches, and welcome back to Time Merchants. A reminder, if you find today's video interesting and informative, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos on vintage watches told with curiosity, integrity, and decades of hands-on experience. It's not impressive to spend money. It's impressive to actually have someone that took the time and did his due diligence to buy something that doesn't scream money but screams knowledge. First of all, I want to start with the idea of a collection. What's a collection? For a lot of people, they're going to start by buying a more entry-level piece. They're going to buy something that's really relevant to their pockets, how deep their pockets are. And obviously, if you're starting with vintage, you're going to start with something smaller just to kind of break the ice, get the feeling of a watch. A lot of times, what we see as an entry-level piece is going to be either an Omega, a two-door, or anything that's really classic, that's really solid, that has history, that's been there for a long time, and that those companies have been making for a long time. That's what I have today. I have variants of really cool vintage Omegas that are a bit different. We have some quirky little things here. For a lot of people, when we're talking vintage Omegas, we're talking about the Seamaster, the Constellations, or the really classic early models that they made. And what I have here, I have a really cool rare Omega Geneve. This is the reference, I'll tell you right now. It's the 165026, and they call it the tool 10107 because that tool actually serves to open the crystal. I do have those new old stock tools, have them somewhere in a drawer just to take off the crystal because those watches basically open from the front. Then you gotta pull out the crown and you gotta adjust the crown through here. What's cool about those watches is that they are pretty solid. Most of them have a pretty good dial because you have no case back. What you have here is a solid case back, and on those watches it avoids the sweat going through the back and damaging either the movement. Most of the cases, it's not the movement that's going to get damaged, but the dial itself. And with a bit of humidity, if it's left there for maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days, we have some really awful results where the dial is going to get damaged, the lacquer or the paint is going to lift. Therefore, a lot of those watches are in pretty good condition, and not only this one has a very cool little dial. It's a bit different. The Association of National Optical made this watch in a really cool design. I've never seen this before. I couldn't find another one, and this one is just unique. Anyway, in this market, I haven't found another one, so if you want it, it's going to be on the website. You're going to see the price, you're going to see the details, everything, and I'm going to try and dig up more information about this. This, again, it's not something that's for this starter buyer, but it's something really cool. What we have here, a second one, is a Seamaster from the 1950s. This one, why is it so exceptional? First of all, the case is pretty good. The case back is very straight. You can look at the angles and everything looks good. But the most important, again, we're looking at the dial. The dial is in really, really nice condition. And we have as well something which is a bit more rare, a two-tone type of dial. You have the top part, which is a bit creamier, a bit more flat in terms of looks. And then the sides, which are rounded off, are a bit more dark, and it just gives it so much depth overall to the whole dial. I have one here that's really, really different. Blue Seamaster, same thing. The case back is really good. The case is unpolished, and we have a blue dial. What's cool about blue dials in immaculate condition is that they have a very hard time resisting the wear of time, and they are extremely fragile. So you're gonna see Rolexes, you're gonna see Omegas, you're gonna see all the brands, including Pateks, blue Patek dials are really prone to aging in a really weird way. Some of them look like they're all crackled. A lot of them, you see the base of the dial underneath, so you see the gold going through the blue. Overall, they're really fragile dials. But in this case, what happened is that every single tritium lume dot or lume plot, if you want to call them either one, they have attacked the blues. So you're gonna see a bit of the plate of the dial, but it just enhances, and it looks like the lume plots are so much bigger than they really are, and you're gonna see them on the website. You're gonna see those plots being way bigger than they really look in person. But it's not the lume plots, it's really the blue that was attacked by the lume dots, okay? That happens very often. A lot of times it's really unpleasant to look at, but in this case it became a feature, and really nice feature for this particular model. When we're looking at Omegas like these, you're gonna look at anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000 in average. They're really classics, and you have something that's gonna last you another lifetime. Obviously, they already have lived their life with their previous owners, but it's easy to actually have them live another life because they're easy to fix. We have the parts, and they are really reliable, just as much as any Rolex out there or anything else. What we have here, the last one, this one is a bit over the $2,000 Canadian mark. We have a Constellation with a round case, a bit more rare, and we have the really nice Omega bracelet. In this case, it is the reference 1068 bracelet with the 556, I think, end links. Really sturdy little bracelet in this case, almost, I'd say, almost unworn. It's not a beat up bracelet that we see normally. The watch is very clean as well. That's what we want to see with vintage. We want to see a watch that hasn't been worn, you know, for 70 years with disregard. We want to see watches that have been well taken care of, and this is the case with this Constellation as well. You're going to see it on the website. It's a really clean one, and I'm really proud to offer you this one as well. If we keep on going with Omegas this week, what we have here is basically the aluminum case Omega. This was made in the 1940s, military watch. It's really rare that we see them in this condition. They are fixed lugs. Obviously, you're gonna see that really simple type of dial with blued hands. In most cases, the case, because it was not really aluminum, and it was a mix of different metals and alloy that was not very resistant to corrosion. A lot of them, you're gonna see pitting, you're gonna see damage to them. You're gonna see cases that are in really poor condition. This one survived for a very long time. And we have here basically a watch that's just as good as it gets for 1940s HS8. We call those the hydrographic service watches. Really cool little watch overall. I mean, survivors like those are so far in between everything that we see on the market, and this one is going to be priced a bit higher. Condition is just incredible for the age. If you're looking for something in the Omega line, I think that this is something a bit more for someone who already has a few watches or already has started collecting military watches or military provenance watches as this one. Next thing, which is really classic. I don't have all the watches here on my desk, but quite a few of those are the ones that are going to be listed. What's the first choice of someone who has a bit more money into vintage or into the used watch market is actually you're going to want to buy a Rolex. What do you buy? Normally you're going to start either with a 34 or a 36. A lot of people that I know are really into those watches. Everyone wants a Rolex. Everyone thinks they made it because they bought a Rolex. It's cool, yeah. We still get that image. We still have that idea that a Rolex is so important to have in a collection. When we actually got our first few paychecks, or you know, we did something really great in our lives and we want to treat ourselves. I think it's a really good choice, but again, you have to choose the right pieces. When I tell people you have to buy a clean watch, you're gonna have to buy something that's gonna be on the long term good for you, and that's gonna, again, If you're looking for holding value, you have to buy something that's clean to begin with. Box papers are not the most important thing. Those can be faked as well or put together. I've seen people putting together watches or buying papers and then changing the serial number on a watch just to kind of mix and match papers with a watch to give it more value. This is called fraud. We don't do such things. I'm not interested into promoting anything like that. You have to buy basically a watch that's clean. What I do, and most of the watches that I buy are directly from collectors or directly from the original owners. Most of the time we're gonna have watches that are in good condition or that haven't been played around with, compared to watches that have been changing hands 20, 30, 50 times. Obviously you're gonna have problems with those watches, and by that time the watch might not have the original dial, the original movement in it. It might have an aftermarket bracelet, and I call those watches the USA specials. It's a joke. It's not something that I really recommend. It's because we see a lot of watches that have been just put together. The reference number, the bracelet, the bezel, the crown doesn't match. Nothing really matches. Everything just put together just to make a Rolex out of thin air. Basically, you're just putting in a beat up movement that doesn't even belong in there. I've seen watches with fake cases, 1960s movements that are really worn out, into fake cases from the 80s. You know, they put this random serial number and a reference, but the case was fake, the movement was real, the dial was fake, the bezel was fake. Everything was kind of really crappy. And you have to be careful where you buy them, how you buy them, who you buy them from, and also do a bit of research to know what you're really looking into. The most important part, obviously, is dealing with people like me. Not necessarily me. I'm not promoting only myself. I'm promoting the good behavior of the market. And in this case, what we have here is a very early 6694, and obviously this is a manual wound 6694 watches. I'd say they're the most sturdy Rolexes you can get. There's nothing better than actually winding your watch on a daily basis. Obviously you have to be careful of when you screw back the crown, because you're going to be damaging the crown if you're mishandling the screwing process. Otherwise, what's cool about this one, it still has the original dial, and it has the sword hands or the Dauphine hands, if you want to call them either one. They're pretty thin, they're pointy, they're looking different, and that's indicative of the early 1960s. It's going to be listed on the website. Next watch, what we have here is a 16013. Same idea. This watch came from the original owner. No box, no papers though, but it's really clean. The case is really thick. The bezel has developed a strong or mildly strong patina. You have a striped dial, which is called the tapestry dial. It just gives it so much depth, so different from everything that Rolex used to do until the 16013s. You don't see this on any older watches. You only see it on the 16013, maybe a bit on the early 16233s or the 16200s from the early 90s, but then they just dropped that idea of making those tapestry dials. So this one is super cool. I really enjoy that almost orangey patina of gold, and it just gives it a very old classic look. Then we have here a really cool 16233. You still see the case back sticker on the watch. Same idea as the 16013. Super clean. Case is even better, less surface marks, and this one has just a few little marks here on the clasp. They're really hard to find nowadays with so little wear. A lot of them have been restored, polished, bracelet replaced. I've seen so many things wrong with those that I'm kind of fed up of trying to buy good ones when they come. I'm just jumping on them. I pay the maximum I can just to generate a little profit, but those are really cool. And sadly, anything Datejust right now, with the tariffs, with everything that's going on internationally, the prices have risen up. I'm not making the market makes itself, and because the demand is super high internationally, we just cannot get them otherwise than maybe buying them in Canada, including Japan. The prices have risen really, really high up there, and we cannot buy from Japan anymore. Even if I did very little, now it's almost impossible. The prices are just so tight. If you do have any questions about any of those Rolexes, they're really interesting. Each one of them has very little wear, and the cases are very strong for their age. If you want to have more details, again, those are all classic watches between Omegas and those Datejusts. They're all on the website, and you're gonna have all the details, all the pictures, all the nitty-gritty about each one of them. We're gonna jump to the next few bits of watches. I'm gonna just go to a really quick Cartier, and then we're gonna go towards the more seasoned collectors out there, or people who want something a bit different, something way out of the classic watches that we see all the time. What we have here is a tank française. This one is a bit more square, despite the fact that we do recognize it as being a Cartier. A lot of people don't recognize the shape as much, just because this one is just a bit wider. It's not like the tank, the classic tanks. It's not like the tank American, which is very long, or the tank allongé, which is the older version. And we have those that are really, I'd say they're really faked. I've seen a lot of fake ones. How do we see it? Because the end links here are never really fitting really well, despite looking kind of good from the front. When you look at the back, obviously they never really match, and the end links and the bracelet and obviously the dial. But for most people, if you look at the pictures that I'm going to be posting on the website, you're going to see the way the whole thing attaches at the back. Those end links are pain in the butt to actually install or replace or remove, but once you do it, it's pretty easy once you learn how to do it. But the first time it took me like 30 minutes, I think. But have a look at the way they're built, the machining and everything, and you're gonna see how well a real watch is made versus the fake ones. This one is automatic. It's gonna be on the website as well. I'm gonna go away from the Rolexes for a moment, and I'm just gonna go here to the PAM 299 with the really rare bracelet that we almost never see on Panerai. This one is box and papers. It dates from 2011. Condition is, I'd say, just as good as it gets for something that's been worn and that's almost 15 years old. This watch has a full bracelet, box, papers, everything is included. It's also going to be on the website. And condition wise, you see how the bracelet is just sitting perfectly on each side. There's no signs of polishing. The watch works well. There's no nicks on the crystal. And overall, the problem with the big Panerai is if you have, let's say, a small wrist, or you're not used to those big watches, you're going to see a lot of damage on the sides and obviously on the crown protector right here. A lot of times as well, including here, we're going to see little surface marks on the bezel. Obviously, this can be easily polished even by hand. It's taking a few seconds, but I always leave those little marks just to show authenticity and to show how good the watch was when it came in my hands. This is one of those watches that's really clean, and I'm proud to actually offer another Panerai on the website. And this one is just so cool. I just find them too big for my wrist. They're always hanging, and I look like I'm just gonna dive and never come back out of the water with one of those on the wrist. But I'd say if you have a bigger wrist, you'd like those bigger 44mm watches. They're just insanely good looking. Next one that I have here, I'm gonna go to the bigger watches, and we're gonna stay in the lineup of Panerai and watches that are out of fashion a bit. I have two Romain Jerome. We have here a Titanic DNA, so the bezel here is from the Titanic. They would machine them, give it a brown look. I don't know the whole process. And here we have the moon DNA, so you have a bit of the moon dust that's on the dial itself. It's something super cool. They made very many variations and different colors, different dials, different numerals on each one of those dials, and they're really cool. But those used to be extremely expensive. I think this used to be almost $30,000, and this one used to be somewhere in the $15,000 more or less. So I'll put together almost $50,000 Canadian with taxes, or even more back then. now a lot less. It's one of those watches that kind of was super hot back then, a bit like Panerai, but this one took a much bigger hit than any other watches out there. We're talking of maybe almost 80%, in some cases, if they really weren't, 85% loss of market value. And again, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. You're looking at hype. Those watches were super hype. It was a novelty to actually go to the moon or buy some dust of the moon and go to the Titanic, buy a chunk of metal and make pieces of the case or whatever to just advertise it as being part of the Titanic. And it's super cool. A lot of them are really beat up because of the same reason as the Panerais. They're really big. If you're into big watches, those are really cool. They can be acquired for a fraction of their retail price right now on the website. And they have box papers. I wouldn't have bought them without the box and papers. These ones are just almost unworn. They even have a price tag, I think, on the bigger Titanic DNA of 15,000 Swiss francs back then, which is kind of insane for what it really is. They're different. That's why I bought them. And if you're really looking to stand out, even in today's market, I think that those can be acquired for a fraction of the price without going crazy and spending 20, 30, $50,000 on something that might just drop just as much as those just did. It's kind of deceiving because obviously I don't want people to lose a lot of money when they buy a watch. It's part of the business. But there are brands like these ones that are extremely volatile. They're very fragile to the market, and they're not going to stay for a very long time. They're also so unique, so different, and so big in most cases that a very small proportion of the market is going to buy them. And if they create too many of those watches, all of a sudden the market just crashes. This is what happened with Romain Jerome. Doesn't mean that they're bad watches in any way. They were just like way too expensive to begin with and way overhyped to begin with, but doesn't make them bad watches in any way. Moving on to the most classic watches, what people dream of, what people really like to wear, or they would like to wear on a daily basis. What we have here is for sports Rolexes. I'm gonna start with a nipple dial. I think this one is from the early 70s. I didn't check yet. I know because the bracelet is folded. They didn't make those afterwards. I think after 74, 75. So I think this is 72, 73. I'll check the year exactly. You're gonna have it on the website. You have stainless steel end links. Those did not make it, I think, after 73, 74 with those folded bracelets, and then they came up with solid gold, or let's say a plaque on top of the stainless steel for the end links. Obviously it kind of does a little break. I find it cool because the watch just gets toned down a bit with those older bracelets. The bracelet is good, but the pins have been worn down a bit, so this one is very good in terms of the head. The bracelet, you can tell that it's been worn. It's been well worn actually. So head is clean, bracelet a bit worn, but it's all original, all very solid. This one is going to be on the website as well. The dial has turned, instead of being a black, it's almost an off black. Every single time I have one of those, it's either really black or it's really turning in a really cool different color. I cannot transmit it through the video or through a few pictures. You gotta have it in your hands, and the play of colors and the play of lights just changes the whole watch altogether. And it's always cool to have one of those. Right now I have 4 two-tone GMTs on hand, so that's one of them. I have 2 more. Then I have here a classic root beer. This one is from the 80s. What's cool about this one is that it is pretty clean. It did have a service in the past from Rolex, and they did replace the dial and the hands. The bracelet is really good. It hasn't been abused in any way, but I'd say overall it is very sturdy in many ways. The case has been slightly polished, along with the fact that the dial and the hands have been replaced by Rolex, but overall it looks just amazing. Not gonna change anything about this one. They just look good as they are, even though it's a service dial. It doesn't really matter as much as on many other watches from the 70s or the 60s. The color is going from a really cool brown to almost red. If you're actually in Montreal, come and visit the store. You're gonna see what I'm talking about. You're gonna see the play of colors of those vintage watches. Way different from what Rolex makes today. Even though they still make those dials today, the service dials, they're not the same as the new dials that they're making. They're much more alive. They're giving a lot of depth. And because of the plexiglass crystals, you have such a better understanding of what Rolex used to be. Today it's less interesting, I find, than what those watches really are today. I'm gonna finish with something that is really interesting, the classic of classics in Explorer 2s. You have the white dial Explorer 2 2005 box papers. This one is in really good condition. I think it was slightly polished before, and what was done is just fabulous. You're gonna see, if you're looking at the website, you're gonna see plastics all over it. The previous person has put a full protection on the whole watch. So you're gonna see a lot of those plastics maybe lifting out slightly, or you're gonna see little lines throughout the whole watch when you're gonna look at the pictures. But overall, if you're looking at a bracelet that's that tight, taken from the side like this, you have a good watch in your hands, and you have something that hasn't been worn much, but I think it was slightly touched up in the past. The case, I don't think so. It's really good, but I think maybe the bezel was slightly touched up in the past. I'm not hiding anything. It's not something that I really do. It's not my job to actually lie to people. There's no reason for it. We're here to actually promote good stuff and good behavior once again. And this is one of those watches that I find is a classic. It's something that will never fade out of what the market is right now, with the 42 millimeters, with those bigger watches. There's not something in between, and this, I think, for smaller wrists, for people like me who have maybe under 6.5-inch wrists, it's a perfect watch. More low-key, they're gonna wear this and a lot of people will not know you have a Rolex on the wrist, because they're not aware that Rolex does make a lot of those white dial Rolexes. And that's kind of it. I'm not gonna go over many more watches. I do have more, but that's just a bit of the core of what I got in the past maybe 5-6 days. If you do want to see more, have a look at the website. I think you'll have a blast. And I want to talk about the fact that even if you're starting, don't necessarily go towards those heavy duty Pepsis. Actually, I even forgot to talk about this one. This one has a bit of a history. But even if you want to go towards those Pepsis or those more expensive watches, I'd say just avoid wanting to go towards that 15, 20, 30,000 dollar watch to begin with. I'd say small Omegas, including smaller Rolexes, are gonna start you off on the right path, to at least try them, to at least have a feel of what a vintage watch really is on the wrist. There's nothing bad about them. To finish off, because I really forgot about this 16750, this used to belong to someone who was in Dubai in 2008 when the market actually crashed, and he was part of the Palms buildings back then. And what happened is that the gentleman has left in 2008 because of the Sharia, because of the fact that if you don't pay your bills, you're basically gonna end up in prison. So people just left their houses, their cars, and everything behind. The one thing that he couldn't leave behind is the watches. He put them in a bag, he left, and he came back to Canada, and he actually sold me this watch. What I proposed to him, I bought it, and I did have the whole case restored. I had it sent to a guy in California. We have, now it's called laser welding, recutting, everything. Basically, if you have material missing with laser welding, you're gonna add stainless steel on the sides, and you're gonna give it the original shape to the watch. In this case, it took about 3 months and a half. So obviously it puts a strain on the business to actually always do have projects like those, because they're not cheap watches, and it was done properly. The dial was clean, the hands were clean, the bezel was pretty nice, and the only thing that was wrong with it was really the fact that the case has been polished before in a wrong way. Now that it's been done correctly, we have a case that kind of mimics a new stock case or a very, very good case, but it's not. I'm just being super honest. A lot of dealers are doing this right now and stipulating that the watches have not been polished or anything like that. That again, that's fraud. That's a way of grabbing more money from your pockets than they should be. But this watch was now restored correctly. It's the first time I'm doing it on a few watches. This is one of those watches that's really worth going above and beyond because it had that history. I took an hour and a half to speak to the original owner, and he told me, look, I want someone who actually takes good care of the watch, and I think I did exactly that, and I went above and beyond to actually bring it back to the market. And this is one of those little side stories of what we do to actually save a watch. It could have been just dismantled, I could have just made a little profit and moved on, but now I have quite a lot of time invested into it and energy into bringing it back to life and someone to enjoy it. What's cool about this one, it has a matte dial. Those are indicative of the 1980s. So the 1675 models became the 16750s, and until 1983, 1984, you have matte dials that were installed on those watches. What's different is that you have a 3075 movement, which is basically an evolution from the 1575. From afar, you just don't see any difference between a 1675 and a 16750. Obviously, the dials are different, they have different patterns, and you do have as well a different movement. Later on, you have the GMT Master 2, which is a bit different, dial and everything else, but this is a very great classic, very hard to earn, to get in your collection. So this one, if you want to grab it, it's going to be on the website, and I find it's a really cool story altogether. Thank you very much, guys, and have a great week. Hi there. Before you take off, I just want to take a second and say that I really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. I am so grateful for this incredible watch community, so thank you for being part of it. If you want to help the channel continue to grow, one of the easiest things you can do is leave a like on this video and consider subscribing.